The Employment Non-Discrimination Act, not the legalization of same-sex marriage, should be the top priority of the LGBT civil rights movement. The ENDA offers Congress the opportunity to ensure workplace equality by protecting LGBT workers from employment discrimination, according to the American Civil Liberties Union website. This legislation should be at the forefront of the LGBT civil rights movement for various reasons. First, marriage is merely a symbolic commitment between two people. It has little tangible benefits for the people involved and even less for the society in which it exists. The few tangible benefits marriage does offer can be accomplished through the ENDA. Second, Congress has passed legislation regarding employment in the past, making the ENDA more likely to encounter success than the legalization of same-sex marriage. This will give the LGBT civil rights movement the necessary momentum it needs to pave the way for more legislation. Third, employment is an issue that affects far more people in the LGBT community than same-sex marriage. Everyone must be employed in order to ensure basic necessities such as housing and food. However, not everyone chooses to get married. The act of marriage in and of itself has very little effect on the people outside of the marriage. Marriage is merely a symbol, but denying someone the right to employment has negative material consequences. While it's true that married couples gain certain tangible benefits, such as family and medical insurance, society as a whole doesn't undergo significant transformation as a result. If passed, the ENDA is capable of achieving these benefits, since many of them are work-related, such as insurance benefits. The passing of the ENDA can grant the LGBT community with many of the rights associated with the legalization of same-sex marriage, while positively affecting more people in the LGBT community. This makes it a more reasonable and effective goal for the LGBT civil rights movement. Congress has already passed legislation that grants rights to workers and eliminates discrimination in the workplace, such as the Fair Labor Standards Act in 1938 and affirmative action in 1965. This makes it more probable that the ENDA will encounter success in the future, since Congress has approved of similar laws in the past. The institution of marriage, however, has undergone very little change over the years. While it's true that same-sex marriage is legal in some states, such as Massachusetts and Connecticut, most states have not approved of it. As my opponent mentioned, California enacted Proposition 8, which eliminates rights of same-sex couples to marry. If California, one of the most liberal and likely states to pass such legislation, is unable to pass this law, it proves that the legalization of same-sex marriage would be a slow process, which would be detrimental to the LGBT civil rights movement. As I've mentioned, legislation regarding employment rights has achieved much more success in the past, unlike the institution of marriage, ensuring that the ENDA will encounter more success in a shorter amount of time, supplying the LGBT civil rights movement with the momentum it needs. The passage of the ENDA will give rights to more members in the LGBT community, since there are more people employed than there are people interested in marriage. According to the Human Rights Campaign website, in 29 states, it's still legal to fire someone solely because they're lesbian, gay, or bisexual, and in 35 states, it is legal to fire someone solely for being transgender. These injustices negatively affect far more members of the LGBT community than the prohibition of same-sex marriage. One example is Diane Schroer, who began taking steps to transition from male to female. Upon hearing this, she was declined an offer as terrorism research analysis at the Library of Congress. Denying citizens the right to work based solely on their sexual orientation has damaging effects on society as a whole. It creates a notion that only heterosexual citizens are deserving of the benefits associated with employment. Passage of the ENDA will greatly minimize discrimination in the workplace and ensure that members of the LGBT community are granted equal employment rights. My opponent mentioned that legalizing same-sex marriage will open the door for members of the LGBT community to adopt. However, the passage of the ENDA will prove to be more beneficial in achieving this goal. Parents must be able to provide for their children, and if members of the LGBT community are being denied employment, they won't be able to provide enough security for their children. My opponent also mentions that the prohibition of same-sex marriage will lead to issues in immigration. But there is already an immigration process in place in the U.S. Marriage is not the only way to gain legal citizenship. However, there is no alternative in place for members of the LGBT community to avoid unemployment until the ENDA is passed. My opponent also mentions the upcoming presidential election, saying that Kaine opposes gay marriage for religious reasons. This is true for most of the Republican nominees, which means that if elected, there is little hope that they would support the legalization of same-sex marriage. However, employment rights have nothing to do with religion and would be more likely to encounter success under the leadership of whichever candidate will get elected. Passage of the ENDA accomplishes many of the same goals associated with the legalization of same-sex marriage, while offering unique benefits such as the security that comes with being employed. The ENDA would benefit far more members, so that members of the LGBT community, and since its passage is more likely, it would also give the LGBT civil rights movement the necessary momentum to encounter more success in the future. For those reasons, the ENDA should be the top priority of the LGBT civil rights movement.